Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I have with me again the beautiful Penny Bradley, who's probably, this is maybe the fifth time you appearing on Arrow Penny. So welcome back. Penny is a survivor of the secret space programs, pilot of the Nachtwaffen,
Hmm.
spent 25 years on Mars. And
Hmm.
if you follow her previous interviews, she gives us a beautiful, detailed sort of a timeline of her journey, which really it is amazing actually because I think Penny, one of the reasons I love speaking with you is because you give such a clear, concise understanding to us on literally such off-worldly, mind-blowing topics. So that's what I appreciate about you as well, one of the things. So if you guys haven't watched Penny's previous interviews, please catch them. They really are amazing in terms of information and just mind-blowing a mind-blowing life experience. So, Penny, welcome back. It's really good to have you. And we're going to be talking about your time on Mars as a fighter pilot, Marsischer Heimschelt. So,
Hmm.
maybe you can explain what that is. But first, yeah, how are you doing?
Well, thank you for having me back. Um, I was on Mars with the Germans, and of course, they would be speaking German. And what they called their militia was Marssische Heimschild or Martian Home Shield. Now, the Americans that were on Mars called it Mars Defense Force. And Randy Kramer is who mostly talks about that. I can share some pictures with you as
Oh,
we
yeah.
go.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you.
So, oops, got to do things in the right order. Okay, get it to come up. Okay. Hmm. This is the uniform patch that Randy Kramer talks about having on his uniform when he served with Mars Defense Force.
Who is Randy Kramer? Can you just maybe expand on that and just give us some idea who that is for those who
Randy
don't?
Kramer is a longtime public speaker who talks about having spent 20 years on Mars as a American Space Marine. And he considers himself to be a spokesman for the Space Marines rather than a whistleblower. Okay. If you are representing the agency that you served with, then you're a spokesman. If you're like me and I'm not representing them, I'm representing the people who were abducted for it, then I'm a whistleblower. So we're covering the same territory, but from different perspectives because he's an American that served with Americans and he's representing the Space Marines.
Right. I'm with
Okay.
you.
And Mars Defense Force is what they called their unit that was on Mars of American Space Marines. And this was their shoulder patch.
Right.
So you notice the orange and
Yeah.
the blue and the sword and Mars. And this is very standard Marine, US Marine type shoulder patch thing. Now, the Germans didn't speak English, so they didn't call it Mars Defense Force. They called it Marsisha Heimschelt. And actually, their uniforms were that orange and white and brown and pink kind of desert camouflage.
Right.
And they painted their ships that way too. So uh, they told me that I was U.S. Navy on loan to them. Now, I'm going to state I seriously doubt that the U.S. Navy would say anything about me being that. Now, I paid for some artwork when I first did a presentation about spending time on Mars. And the artist's name is Mark Thalassi, and he did these using colored pencils. These are not AI creations. These are not even computer generated. These are hand done with colored pencils. And I love Mark, but Mark thinks that all Germans are blonde, and he thinks that Mars is red, and it's not, it's dirt colored. So keep that in mind as you check out the drawings. But this one was me with my ship as a fighter pilot. He did at least get my blue-green eyes right. And the so he added this patch for it. It may or may not be accurate, but yes, I had a blue flight suit, and at that point it was a flight suit, not a smart suit. The smart suits came later. I became a fighter pilot in 1975, and this is pretty much what my ship would have looked like later on. So this
Can you, can you, I mean, when you say you became a fighter pilot, I mean, you say it like I'm saying, well, I learned to tie my shoelaces. So maybe you can talk us through what it entailed. What training
okay.
did you do to become a fighter pilot of these incredible aircraft? I mean, that must have taken some training because I'm interested, especially when we're looking at, you were also at Montauk, and we are aware of places like
Uh-huh.
Montauk and these horrible places that do these disgusting experiments on kids. So would that, I guess this is the reason I'm asking. Would that torture that you experienced as a child at these places be the reason that you were flying these high?
I was chosen to fly because before I was even born, my DNA was modified in two distinct places. This was an early stage of what we now call CRISPR tech. And I had two discrete bits of alpha draconian DNA added to my DNA. Okay. I would have been an Anunnaki human hybrid anyway, but they took these two places and added alpha draconian DNA to make me a navigator.
Right,
Now, so
right,
that meant I was able to do things other people can't.
right.
So
I'm with you.
don't sit there and think that there's something wrong with you that you can't do this, because
I'm
there
with you.
isn't.
I'm with you. And I
Okay.
and I actually remember now we did speak about that in one of your previous shows where you
Hmm.
did mention that your DNA had been altered, and that actually makes a lot of sense again. And thank you for highlighting that again because I know that Honestly, and I want to just say this, I think it must be quite frustrating for a survivor like yourself who's been through all these amazing experiences, to come back and try and educate us. But these are the
Yeah.
little things that for me, it gives us a great understanding that whilst you were still in the womb, you weren't even born yet. Your DNA had already been altered. So you were what they call, I
Mhm.
guess, spliced. So you were spliced already to,
Spliced is a good description for
okay. So
common
you,
folk to understand. Um, now, how did this happen? It was because my father had gotten in trouble and the Office of Scientific Studies offered him a way out of his legal trouble, which was his firstborn would work for them. And he apparently had the idea I would only be taken once and that I would be okay, that they, as far as he was concerned, I would only be gone an hour maybe. He did not understand that I was going to be taken over and over and over and over and over and over and over. So the story I'm telling you is about the first trip out. Okay, I know I have memories of at least 91 60 and backs with the Germans. And I'm telling you about the first one. This is a long term, this is what my life is. Now, when I was on Mars, the first thing they did was they took me to Shula. They put me in Shula for 10 years. That's German school. They taught me German history. They taught me German literature. Um, they taught me to speak German. Actually, they spoke Schwabish. They didn't speak Hochdeutsch. So Schwabish is as different from High German as Boer Dutch is from Holland Dutch. They're they're the same language, but they're not. And so I have these words in my head and I go to Google them to find out what it is I'm remembering. And because it's not standard German, the definition's wrong. Doesn't make sense in the context. So I have trouble translating the memories because I was given the memories. I wasn't given the altar. The altar understands the language, Penny doesn't. So it's been a long process of figuring out what it was I was remembering. Now, this particular ship would have been around 1980, 85. Before that, I had one that looked like F-15, with the two fins in the back. Um, but yeah.
is it? And I'd like to just find out as well, like when we're talking about altars and splicing. So is it possible then that we like with the special splicing of the Anunnaki DNA that you've received, is it in your normal everyday penny body as you sitting there, you still have those gifts and the abilities, or are those gifts and abilities um, programmed into your altars? So, do you have certain abilities only when you're in an alter state?
Hmm. I was sent back with a firewall. So I have the abilities, but I couldn't always access them.
Right, right. I'm with you.
They're, and when I first met Randy, he was teaching a course on psionics, which is these abilities. And because normal humans have some of them, and he's teaching the U.S. Marine Corps version of psionics. And so I came up to him, we were at a conference, and I said, Randy, how do I get past the firewall? You have a lizard on your wall.
Little gecko. Loves showing off.
But Randy said, you just repeat over and over, there is no firewall. And I used it as a mantra for, it took 2 years, but I eventually got past the firewall. So I have the abilities now that I did in space.
I'm with you.
They take a lot of energy. So it's not like I sit here and just pop around the universe or anything.
Right.
And I actually work at not listening to what people are thinking.
Right.
Your average person on the street has the expectation of privacy in their own head. And when they realize you're hearing what they're thinking, they get really hostile really fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I
So,
can imagine.
so I make an effort to not listen in. And there's a procedure for that. And Randy teaches it, by the way. He used to call it the blue bubble helmet, where you just sort of confine your abilities to yourself. And it makes it where you're not infringing on other people. They can think their own thoughts in peace around you, and you're just not. And I interviewed Michael Lee Hill. He was part of A.R. Borden's team in the Labyrinth group. And he has some pretty good psionic abilities. And he's been really frustrated because I've done the blue bubble thing around him too, and he can't read my mind. And he's like, what are you doing? Yeah, what do you use? So we had a talk about Randy's class, and I don't know if Mike went to it or not, but yeah. Yes, it's interesting when when you meet these people at conferences, because you find out they're just real people with
Exactly.
special abilities. And you know,
Another thing I wanted to ask you about that, you talk about the Germans on Mars and are we talking normal humans like
yeah,
you that have been trafficked basically, like you have? Um,
um, the German colonists, you have to you have to go back into the history in the 1900s, last century. Um, Actually, you have to go back into the history of the German space program. It goes back to the 1600s. People think it just started in World War II, and it didn't.
no,
No,
the
it
Germans have
started.
always been involved with the occult. They've loved the occult. It wasn't just Hitler.
This wasn't exactly the occult, although it started with something really weird. Uh, there was a man, Sir John Dee, and he was Queen Elizabeth I of England. He was her court magician and her first international spy. And he was working with a medium. Today we would call them a channeler. And they were channeling Enochians, who they thought were angels. Except the Enochians required blood sacrifices. So all of the information that John Dee and his medium Edward Kelly got, they got through blood sacrifices. And there are documents where you have the Enochian language, you in a dictionary, you have the alphabet, you have sigils, you have um, story. Your mic's off.
Sorry,
You
did you
have,
say that was John Keller?
it was John Dee and Edward Kelly. And that was in this, that was in the 1600s. Now, in the process of their travels, they went to the Holy Roman Empire, which was devolved into the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So this was that part of Eastern Europe. It was actually, if you look at a map of World War II, the Axis countries in Europe, Germany down to Italy, those were the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah, yeah.
And so they went to the court of the emperor. Well, the Pope had gotten wind that they were practicing black magic because of the blood sacrifices. And so the Pope told the emperor, get rid of these guys. So they moved up to Prussia. And John Dee got arrested by the Pope. And he spent some time in prison in the Vatican. You didn't know the Vatican had a prison, did you?
No, I
But
mean,
he spent some time in prison. Meanwhile, Edward Kelly has all of this stuff that they've channeled and all of these books and documents and all of this, and he's sitting there in Prussia. Okay. When John Dee gets out of jail, he goes back to England and reports to Queen Elizabeth I about all of the stuff he's found, talking to all these heads of state and aristocracy everywhere. Okay, so 1600s, all of the Enochian information that included technology was in the hands of the Prussians. Okay, you go fast forward, you have the Prussians, the Germanic peoples, have become the best engineers in the world. Your get goes back.
wow.
And so they are
Yeah,
trying to bring their level of technology up to the level of the technology the Enochians gave them in the 1600s. Meanwhile, all of these wars ever since have been blood offerings to the Enochians who continued to interact with mediums in Prussia.
wow.
Now, somewhere along the way, the Bauer family became the Rothschilds, and they became a banking dynasty. They started off in Germany. I don't know which little kingdom they were in, but they started controlling Europe through financing wars of heads of state. They decided that the Germans and the Holy Roman Empire were too big for their britches. So they literally financed Napoleon destroying the Holy Roman Empire in 1800, right after the American Revolution, and we set up our country. And so in the middle of all of this confusion of England lost their American colonies, England had been been the most powerful country on the planet. And now they set up Napoleon to destroy the Holy Roman Empire.
Right.
All of the German wars after that, from the German point of view, were to restore the Holy Roman Empire. And 90% of the world doesn't know that.
That's super interesting. It makes sense though. It's, as you're speaking, it's like click, click, click. Things click
Now,
in. Makes a lot of sense.
now, in the 1800s, the United States, Tsarist Russia, and Prussia were allies. And they were working on the Enochian technologies together. Now, when did that change? It was when Teddy Roosevelt was president of the United States, because he was a Southern boy and his family had lost almost everything in the Civil War, and he had been sent to live with relatives in England. And his presidency was supported by the British Royals, the Crown Corporation. So as soon as he became president in about 1900, he switched our longtime alliance from Prussia and Russia to Britain and France, who at that point had become friends. 100 years earlier, they weren't. So we go into this war situation where England and France are being stomped by Germany. Russia's been destroyed by the Bolsheviks. And half of our population in the United States expected us to go in on the side of the Germans. And instead, there was a special arrangement made where we got the Federal Reserve banking system owned by Crown Corporation. We got Internal Revenue Service, we got income taxes, and we got a special relationship with Britain, which in plain English meant our American dollar became the world reserve currency, and we got control of the drug trade that Great Britain had been in control of before. And that's how America got rich.
Wow. I think
And
America,
the Rothschilds gave Britain money to win World War I based on a trade where they would end up with Palestine for the Jewish people.
yes,
The Palestinians were never consulted about this.
yes, I agree.
So this is pure history. I'm not saying whether it's good or bad. This is simply what happened.
I'd like your comment on this because funnily enough, you're talking about this whilst I was waiting earlier on. I came across this talking about World War One and World War, sorry, the war basically. Let me just find it here quickly. And that, because what I'm hearing is that Aleister Crowley actually had something to do with that because he was working for the Germans as well as the Brits. So,
And he came to the United States and he spied around here too. There were
yes,
Walter Bosley has a series of books Their historical, I don't know if you would call it fiction or not. There's a lot of speculation. I didn't see so much fiction, but it's called The Kingdom of the Wheel. And there's like 5 or 6 books, and they're worth reading. He does a lot of research into the time period, and he ties together Aleister Crowley, Butch Cassidy and Sundance, and a series of murders that were done in Riverside and San Bernardino in California before World War One. And he ties together the sinking of the Lusitania into that, and yeah, into the worship of Hecate as Saint Catherine of the Wheel. He goes into the occult roots of all of this mess, and he does a rather convincing job of it. I was impressed.
Give me the name of those books again, Penny.
The Empire of the Wheel
The Empire of the Wheel.
by Walter Bosley.
Walter Bosley. And you say there's a few.
Yeah, it's a series, and he only sells them on, I believe it's Lulu Books, Lulu, and they print to order, so you get a brand new book.
The Empire of the Wheel by Walter Bosley on Lulu Books. So check that out, guys. It might be worth looking into, especially when you're looking at these things, because I find it very interesting. You know Gary Wayne.
Not by name.
Okay, Gary Wayne is a Christian contrarian, and what he's
Mm.
done is he's researched the Bible, Christianity upside down, inside out, back to front, and he really is probably one of the most interesting people to talk to. Um, he said something very interesting, and I've mentioned this quite often. It was two scuffling cousins that started the world wars, and it
Yeah,
makes a
it
lot of
was.
sense.
They were all children, grandchildren of Queen Elizabeth of England.
Well, doesn't that make sense? And then
Not
you
not Queen
think
Elizabeth, Queen Victoria. I'm sorry,
Victoria, and it
Victoria.
makes such sense because now you see how they've literally sucked in the entire world um, to fight their battles, if you want to call it
Yeah,
that.
they did. What people need to understand is all of the royals in Eurasia 1,000 years ago were all one family.
Yeah,
All the way from Korea to Iceland, all the royals were one family, including India, Armenia, all of it. And since then, they have retained that family relationship. They are no more than fourth cousins apart,
right.
no matter what last name they use. They're one family.
Got to
And
watch out for that jaw.
yeah, watch out for that jaw.
The Habsburg jaw, with all these sloping foreheads.
And people talk about the 13 families of the the Black Illuminati. They talk about the 300 the Council of 300. They talk about the families that are Merovingian. All of these people have intermarried.
Yeah,
They
makes
are
perfect
not
sense.
they are not 13 families. They are not 300 families. They are one family with different names.
Makes such sense.
And there are now charts where all of them are descended from one woman that lived in about 800 AD.
And who's she?
Um, I blinked on her name. I'll get it to you. But yeah,
Yeah,
there's one woman who was the mother of all of the kings. Not like Queen Victoria was the mother of all the kings
right.
because she married all of her kids into power.
But I just want to go back just for what I was saying earlier on, just for maybe the sake of the viewers as well, what I was saying about Crowley. Crowley worked with the German newspaper, The Fatherland, writing provocative pro-German pieces. However, the alternative views hold that Crowley was secretly a British intelligence asset, embedded within German circles to manipulate public sentiment in the United States, because, of course, Britain wanted the United States to join with them and
Mm-hmm.
get a, fight
And,
against Germany and what have you. And I mean, that's
and
exactly what happened.
thanks to Teddy Roosevelt, that was exactly what happened. Teddy Roosevelt embraced bullying the rest of the New World, the Americas. His policy was actually called "Speak softly and carry a big stick." And it was, we told them what to do, and if they didn't, we invaded. And that
Mm,
is where America got this policy that we continue to do today throughout all of the world, not just the Americas. So,
totally. I mean, I've interviewed Confessions of an Economic Hitman,
mm,
John. Um,
I know who
very,
he is.
very interesting. Very, very, very interesting because, he talks about how they would go to third world countries and literally take out the leaders if they were not complying with
Yes,
their agenda. Yeah, I
that's
mean
true.
that's been done, and that
It's
is how America got rich, actually. If you think about it, Penny, you
it's
know,
how they've continued to get rich. Yeah,
yeah,
being the world reserve currency is how we got rich. Controlling the drug trade is how we got rich. And then once we had that, we bullied everybody else
and then continued. Yeah, makes
and
perfect sense.
continued. And that is why so much of the world hates the United States. And I understand that. If I were them, I'd hate us too. And trying to tell people in the United States that this is what's going on, they're like, well, we're the greatest country in the world.
But that's also, and I've noticed that obviously, as someone who's grown up in the third world country, we get no special privileges in the third world country, but we just like seen as, oh, well, you just like there. Um, but I've noticed the mind control with Americans especially has been huge into
Oh, yeah.
believing, you know, yes, of course, America has been the most powerful country economically for a long time. But then the question is, how did America get that way? And now we see, and not only America, so please, but I do understand that there's a whole process, and a lot of Americans haven't even thought about. And that's why I say
I
it's so
would
important.
say 98% of Americans have no clue we even have an empire.
Right.
They have no idea how we got rich. They have no idea how we have the ability, like we picked up Julian Assange in Great Britain. How did we have the jurisdiction to pick up someone who had never been in our country and subject him to a legal process where he was tortured for years?
Exactly.
How do we have that power? That was one of the I've asked several questions over the years here on Earth. How do we have the money to bully everybody? How do we have the jurisdiction to pick up heads of state and subject them to legal trials when they've never been on our territory? They've never set foot in our country. How do we have the the audacity to just go pick them up. We did that to Noriega in Panama.
Yep.
You know, how do we have the audacity to shoot heads of state with plutonium pellets and give them cancer?
Yep.
How do we have the audacity to set up the drug trade in Colombia and Ecuador and Central America, and we set up cartels to move the drugs from Central America into the United States and pretend it to be some sort of subterfuge, but the CIA is running the whole thing. How do we do that?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. We're selling drugs to our own inner city people and using that money to conduct these wars, supposedly to stop communism, but it's really just to expand the empire. And 98% of Americans are clueless. You
Yep.
you you ask somebody on the street and they're like, "We didn't do that."
Mm-hmm.
And they think I'm nuts because I've done the homework to find out where we did this from.
Mm.
The other question that I've been asking for years and digging and digging and digging and digging is who really runs the world?
There is a question, so I'd love your opinion on that.
What I found was that there is a layer of the elites who have telepathy and can hear the Anunnaki. That the Anunnaki have been running the planet the whole time, whether they were physically here or not, through this telepathic link with some of the elites.
The vampires.
The vampires were also part of it, yes. The vampires were another form of human, another species of human who figured out that they could become immortal by drinking blood.
Yeah.
And there's only two of them left. The originals. Um, some of the folks who are Homo capensis, some of the folks who are Homo sapien have also figured that out. And so there was a virus that they were picking up, and the Soviet Union collected up all the vampires in their country and they put them into a single valley and nuked them. Can you
Nuke
imagine?
them.
They nuked them. They got rid of all of the vampires in their country that way.
Any particular reason for that?
They didn't want vampires.
Well, I mean, if you just look at what's happening now, we what is adrenochrome
Yeah,
consumption? That's vampirism. I
of
mean,
course
so
it is.
you might not put your teeth in the neck and draw the blood like that, but you are
Well,
certainly,
adrenochrome comes out of your cerebrospinal fluid.
yeah,
But
absolutely.
yeah, it is what it is. The vampires were getting it out of the blood rather than the cerebrospinal fluid. But yeah, it's the same difference. You take a look at the famous people, there are times when adrenochrome is almost impossible to get, and you'll watch them suddenly get very old.
Yes, like these celebrities nowadays. I mean, aren't they looking awful, some of them? It's like it's a
Those
completely
are the
different person.
those are the ones that were addicted to adrenochrome and got their supply cut off.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that there's not still people selling it? Probably not, because the trade is still in action. I can tell you out in space, adrenochrome is the most expensive drug out there. and it's
And
behind
it
a lot.
comes from human kids.
It
So all
comes
the
from, it's the terror hormone. You are terrorizing children to get that. And
and that
I
only
know
comes from
that's
humans. They can
it,
only get adreno from humans in this
right.
entire
It,
universe,
it,
multiverse. It's
yeah,
only from human kids.
yeah.
And I suppose animals too. Otherwise they wouldn't do it.
Um, Animals, it doesn't work the same
Right.
when humans take it, but they get it from humans. It's from children. So when people start talking about, oh yeah, we rescued a bunch of kids from a dump. Well, where did those kids go? Because
My point
I
exactly, Penny.
I'm not seeing where they're being put in foster care. I'm not seeing where the foster parents are being advertised for. Where are you taking these kids? Well, we're taking them into space. If you're taking them into space, they're still being used for adrenochrome.
Is that what they've been saying? That
Yeah,
they
that's
take
what they've been
these kids
saying
to
in the
space?
United States is they're taking them into space. That's the gossip. Which is, and then I say, if you're taking them into space, you're not saving them. They're continuing to be used. And people accuse me of being negative. No, I'm real.
Wow.
A lot
That,
of the infighting in the disclosure movement is because you have people who are real, and you have people who are pie in the sky, and you have agents who want to keep everybody stupid.
yeah, for sure.
We've got all three going, and that's when there's constant infighting. And you'll find somebody who's real, who starts listening to an agent and starts doubting themselves. You'll find somebody who's real, who starts listening to the pie in the sky people and think, oh, well, I've just been being negative. And they'll change their whole story, which discredits them. Now, in American disclosure, there are two basic religions. You've got fundamentalist Christians who think it's all demons, and you've got New Age who think the Pleiadians are going to come save us all. Seriously. And that's like half the movement between the two of them. And I got tired of the fighting between the two religions. And so in my groups on Facebook, I don't allow them to talk religion, period. The Christians think the New Agers are witchcraft. The New Agers think that the Christians are basically demonic because they're so negative. And all they do is fight. So there's no reason to even start that. I'm a former Christian who never bought into New Age. That's where it is. Now, we also have a problem with politics. In American disclosure, 2/3 of them bought into QAnon. And they're still worshiping Trump. And yet, Trump is not giving us disclosure. You know, I mean, seriously. Congress is piddling around and they're approaching the topic, but it's from a perspective of congressmen are not allowed to visit the bases. Congressmen are not allowed to find out where the money is actually appropriated is actually being used. For them, it's a matter of their authority is being laughed at. And so they've got that issue going. They do a lot of things in skiffs. I'm sorry. You can remote view anywhere. A skiff doesn't matter. Seriously. Now, some areas will have people guarding them so that if you do start to remote view, they can follow you home and do things to you. And I have had mages show up at my house and try to kill me. They do little things like brain bleeds. So there's no proof that you were actually murdered. My mother died last March from a brain bleed. The very next night, the same was tried to be done to me. So yeah, I know my mother was murdered. So, this
Sorry.
this this is the reality of being a real disclosure whistleblower. Is
Yes.
you have to deal with religious fanatics. You have to
Yes.
deal with agents who literally want to kill you, and they are literally using black magic people to do
Yes.
it
Yes.
because
Yes.
because shooting me didn't work.
Yes. I'm with you.
So then I'm like, okay, I'm risking my life to tell you people the truth. And I get frustrated because I get stuck in this 101 loop where I never get to what matters. And I get almost to what matters, and the host shifts the topic. And yeah, I get to where I'm so frustrated dealing with the community, dealing with the people that do the shows. I have my own show. I do. And I interview some of the most radical people in the community because they have no voice. And if you want to hear the deep and dirty, yeah, it's on my channel. And some of my guests get just as deep and dirty as Jesse Sabatar without the saving grace of Jesus. And this is a topic that goes there. One of the last interviews I did, I literally went into shock for 3 weeks afterwards. I mean, you knew I didn't want to do anything. I was just sitting here, just doing my best to stop crying.
Mm.
So yeah, it's not a fun time had by all. If they're having fun, they're living in cover memories.
Right.
And yes, they give us cover memories when they send us back. So we know we did something and they make us think that we're some heroic person because we were fighting the bad guys. Well, who are the bad guys? They're just other humans out there trying to survive.
Exactly. Can you just explain cover memories, please? Clarify
Okay,
cover
when
memories.
when you are brought back from a trip. Now, a trip can be the CIA picked you up to kill somebody. Um, you were picked up to talk to somebody, get them to do something they didn't want to do, or it can be 60 years out in space, anywhere in between. I had a 2-year trip where the military industrial complex had stripped all the trees off of a forest planet, and the native sentient life form had evolved from flying squirrels, and they had nothing left to eat. And because I had a farming background, they brought me to be their corn goddess. and teach them how to farm. And I did it because those people deserve to have food. And I made them do chemical tests to find out what these people actually required, and made sure that I taught them how to grow the crops that would meet their nutritional needs. And I got the military industrial complex to actually supply seeds that met their needs.
Why did they cut the trees to begin with?
Because there are very few worlds out in space that have trees, and they use wood for things like paneling and tables, and they completely destroyed a world. The movie Avatar was on point. That's exactly how they behave. That's how humans are behaving in space. So you spend a lifetime doing something like that, and you come back, and one, they don't want you to talk about what you really did. Two, what you really did may be so traumatic that they think you're going to have a nervous breakdown and not be usable again, because they intend to use you more than once. And so they give you this pleasant memory of you were a hero and you were saving this world from blah, blah, blah. And the truth is you were destroying it. Now, what I do when I get a new memory is I go into self-hypnosis, which anybody can learn to do that. And I ask my subconscious to draw back the curtains and show me what really happened. And I don't delete the cover memory, so I still know what they wanted me to think. But pull back the curtains and show me what really happened. And if you think you're a hero, you're dealing with a cover memory. And that's important. Now, the other thing that's important is that because there's so many people out here claiming this, that, and the other, real SSP have alters. Real SSP are damaged. Real SSP are angry. Real SSP are not nice people. And they tell horror stories. We were all kidnapped as little kids. We were all mind fractured through rape and worse. We've all been asked to murder our best friends. We've all been trauma bonded to someone of the opposite sex. We've all been put into bodies that were the opposite sex. We've all got sex slave alters. Every one of us. We've all done horrible, horrible, horrible things that are really hard to live with. And if you're reading us, you're going to pick up that energy that we've done horrible, horrible, horrible things. I've had people read me and say, well, you have this liquid metallic gold, but underneath you have red with black spirals. Well, yeah, that red is survival. And the black spirals are from my service. It never goes away. You can work on it and work on it and work on it and get those black spirals down to really thin, but they never go away. Plus, every one of those altars has soul energy. And the more of it you get rid of, because I've got people that tell me, oh, well, I just destroyed, I killed that altar. Yeah, really. You kill that altar, you've lost that soul energy.
Yeah.
You diminish yourself. The
Yeah.
only way to have any kind of completion is to reintegrate the altar,
Yeah.
which
uh,
also means their crimes become your crimes.
exactly.
So this is not a fun time had by all. And if somebody is talking about, oh yeah, I did this and this and this and this and this, and they're proud and it sounds glorious, they're dealing with cover memories. This is not something you want to have been part of.
Yeah.
And
I fully agree.
I keep hoping that the public, what did I do? I keep hoping that the public is going to put enough pressure on the governments involved, because it's not just the United States, it's every country that has nuclear weapons is involved. So I keep hoping the public will put enough pressure on their government to embarrass them into stopping kidnapping children and start using consenting adults. Now, the truth of the matter is they used consenting adults in the 1940s and 50s, and every one of them went insane because of dealing with extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
So you have that. And the job that I do as a navigator to fly the plane, to fly the ship in space, it requires certain abilities that can only be accessed through torture.
Explain that, please.
You have to learn how to bilocate.
Right.
You have to learn how to bilocate and take things with you. And you learn that by trying to escape situations that you have no normal means of escape.
I'm with you.
So they've tried doing it with virtual reality, and all they accomplished was a lot of people with alters that were unable to fly the ship. And there are some very nice people at HeartMath Institute who think it can be done by achieving bliss. Well, maybe they can get telepathy out of them that way, but they can't fly the ship because you have to be able to go interdimensional and take physical objects with you to fly the ship. That's why it can't be done by just a computer.
And that's why your DNA needed to be altered
And
so
that's
that you
why
could do that.
that's why
So
my
you had
DNA had to
the
be
human
altered.
sentience and the human pliability of your consciousness, as well as just your human body, your human frequency, right?
Yeah.
Which is what they're after. Then obviously spliced with some angelic technology, for want of a better word, that
No,
obviously
it's the same technology that today we call CRISPR, but that was given to us by an extraterrestrial. We continue to get technology from extraterrestrials. The group of extraterrestrials who do this are referred to as the Corteum. Corteum. And there's 5 species in the Cortium, and they drip, drip, drip technology to the Labyrinth group, which is a division of the NSA. And the NSA gives this technology drip to the military industrial complex corporations for them to develop it into something usable. This has been going on since the 1940s in the United States. It was going on before that with Prussia and Germany.
question. There's a lot of talk about Eisenhower and his involvement in this technology, and it would make sense because really, when they fully started using it in programs and things in America, was after the Second World War. So that's like
Mhm.
Operation Paperclip. So I would imagine that was also a lot of the German Nazi information that was now being siphoned through into these torturous programs. How does Eisenhower fit into this? Because we've been told that he made the agreement with the Greys, basically. But then I think his granddaughter, Laura Eisenhower, is speaking a lot, and she's saying, no, that's he
Well,
more for the good side that he connected with them. I'd love to hear your take
okay,
on that.
I know Laura. I like Laura. I would rather not piss her off, but there's a lot of testimony that Eisenhower met at least 3 times with different extraterrestrials and signed treaties. From the German experience in space, I know what they said, which was at the end of World War II, well, in the middle of World War II, Hitler replaced the aristocracy with Jesuits. That's why the Pope never excommunicated him. As the aristocracy was replaced, they actually tried to murder him. At one point, they figured out that the war was lost because he was listening to the Jesuits instead of the aristocracy. So they took their technology and went to Camp 211 in Neuschwabenland in Antarctica. And it's relatively near South America rather than South Africa. And at the end of the war, the German nation surrendered. Hitler lived out the rest of his life in Argentina, near the Bolivian border. That the United States actually paid him a stipend. Yeah, they knew where he was all along. And
Sure, they organized it for him too.
uh, he tried to go to Camp 211 and they turned him away. They said he was a traitor to the German people. He never,
Why?
because he had replaced the aristocracy
Right,
with Jesuits.
right. I'm with
And
you.
so the group that they had in Antarctica was not enough. You have to have a minimum number of bodies with enough variance to have a healthy genetic culture. They didn't have enough. So they first went to the moon and then they went to Mars. And I have memories of an altar who was part of a Valkyrie program. And we thought at first that we were copying the myth. And because we never ran across anybody else, we came to the understanding that we were the cause of the myth. But we went back in time, got people who spoke Germanic languages, and set up colonies where, okay, you come to a planet that you're frozen. Am I still online? You're still hearing me? Okay, because I worried. So you come to a
Sorry.
planet that has no infrastructure. You go back in time, you get your own people from the past, And there were certain things we were supposed to look for. And the hardest part was getting women who had not died in childbirth, because we had to get people who actually died in the past, so we weren't messing with this with the timeline. And we were supposed to get strong and capable and intelligent if we could ascertain that. And we would go back and we would get these people, and we would have a colony started with people who spoke the same dialect and had the same core religious beliefs. And their job was to take a blank world and set up the initial technology to support the next stages. And we would leave someone with them that was an engineer to help them design it where it would lead into the future. And it would take 100 years or so to bring them up to where we were. We went back in the past to about 800 AD, all over Germanic Europe. And that included England, that included Iceland, that included Scandinavia. It was, Eastern Europe, as far down as Ukraine. And we didn't go back further than that because there had been an asteroid hit Hyperborea at about 400, 450 AD. And that was what caused the Dark Ages. And people weren't real healthy then because the strike dumped a lot of dirt and it started volcanic eruptions. So
Right. Wow.
it completely destroyed Hyperborea, and all of that just basically bounced, splashed all over the top part of the northern hemisphere. So that's why people think there were mud floods. There weren't. Hyperborea was hit. The magnetic field just pulled the asteroid right into it. So that's why we didn't go back any further. But the ship was called the Valhalla, and we actually referred to our captain as Odin. And yeah, except when we were with the Bretts, then he was called Wotan to match their mythology. We tried to match the mythology as close as we could. We didn't know we were causing it. And I was young in those. I was young, and they kept me young. I wasn't. I was normally kept between 25 and 30, but I was kept around 20 in that. And I can show you a photo of
When you
this.
say they kept you young, how did they do that?
Regeneration tanks. Now, this is what I looked like in the here and now in 1975. That's what I would have looked like the first year I was a fighter pilot, and that's what I would have looked like as a Valkyrie.
Wow.
So no, guys, I have not always been old and gray. That's what I look
Explain
like.
Valkyrie. Is the Valkyrie some type of programming as well that you would go through?
Uh, we had a training. It was a project. Um, the worst part was learning the local dialect because we had to be able to ask them if they wanted to go to Valhalla. Yeah, the Germans actually asked for consent. If they were not already dead, like we knew they had a gut wound and the technology of the day would not let them be healed. Okay. We had to ask them if they wanted to go to Valhalla.
In other words, die.
Yeah, they thought it was die.
Well, exactly. That's crazy because
We
I
had
know.
we had these okay, Star Wars, the laser swords, they're real, but they're not. Okay. They're real in that laser swords exist. They're not real as that length. They're more the length of a Roman gladius. So they're about a half a meter long. And we would use those to cut the heads. And what's really bad is the blood doesn't flow out, it's cauterized. So they don't lose the oxygen. So they're alive and aware with their head cut off.
No, come
And they're
on.
looking at you. And we put their heads into a bag, like a Santa Claus bag. And we would put the bags into a shuttle that had a Pegasus painted on the side. Yeah, like my ship in the artwork. We we came down with one of those. It was pure white or silver, and there was a Pegasus on both sides. And so that's why the legend that the Valkyries ride flying horses. So, yes, I wore a black smart suit, which looks like a cat suit. Okay. And over it, I had a white linen tunic that went down to just above my ankles. And white in ancient times was more like cream today because they didn't have bleach. And over that, I had gold armor, gold chainmail, gold armor, breastplate, gold hat, helmet. It didn't have those big wings like they have in opera. It had impressed wings on the side. So, and I wore black boots that went with the cat suit. And I
And
had
what
this.
about the heads that were in the, where were the heads sent to? And what happened
We
with
took
these
them.
conscious bodies
It
after the
takes
heads
them.
were?
It takes them about 20 minutes for the head to die after it's cut off. And we were collecting lots of heads, and we would come back to the ship and they would be put into regeneration. The legend is that the Valkyrie would collect the head, take it to Valhalla, hold it up before Odin, and the body would form beneath it, which is exactly what happened in the regen tank. Yeah, I was Earther. That was my altar's name was Earther. Earther was also a Norn, and she held the well of Earther was part of the Yggdrasil, the tree of life.
I mean, I'm fascinated. It is so incredible what you're saying. As you're talking to me, I'm trying to, just from a human perspective, I'm trying to imagine what that must have been like for you. I have no concept of
You
anything I
get
can.
used to it, but the first few were really hard. I mean, really hard. I had to get used to the idea that this was temporary, that they were going to be regenerated. And so yeah, it
And the
was
actual body, so they would take the head, and obviously that regenerates, and the bottom
the
half of,
actual body stayed on Earth. Those people were dead, their heads were gone.
so they were then buried or whatever, normal
Yeah.
earth.
Um, most of the Germanic tribes did cremation. Yeah.
This, I mean, when we hear stories like this, Penny, and I know our time is always super interesting chatting, but it's when we hear stories like this, and we hear about, as you say, the movie Avatar, and that being pretty on point. And I know there've been a couple of others as well, but it's
Yeah.
amazing that we feel like victims because it's clear that we are humans, right?
Mm.
Are terrible perpetrators out in outer space, right? There's a lot of
What what we tend to do is we go out there and think it's the wild, wild west and that there's no law and that we can take what we want. And if anyone stands in our way, that they're irrelevant because they're not us. That's
that's
what
very and
that's
that's
what
very
that is what the American military industrial complex is doing most of all. The Germans are not quite as aggressive about it, actually.
um,
They actually had to contract with the Draco Empire, the reptilians. They had to
yeah.
contract with them to find worlds that were suitable for humans. And if there were already intelligent life forms there, they had to contract with them as well.
The Americans,
The Germans.
the Germans, okay.
Every square centimeter of space is already owned by someone else. The
Who?
Germans did contracts, usually. On Mars, they couldn't get a contract, so they went to war. But most cases, the Germans made contracts to get where they live. The Americans are just going in like it's fair game, and they're just blasting everybody. And
What
then
they
they
do in Africa, Penny. It's what they do in Africa, you
exactly,
know.
exactly the same crap they do on Earth, they're doing it in space. And the truth of the matter is there is law out in the galaxy, and they
Universal law, yes.
and no, there's a police force called
Right,
the Guardians. And the
right.
Guardians are now engaged in sending everybody back to the solar system. We will be, all of us, inside the Oort cloud together, uh, and sealed in. And
Judgment Day.
well, yeah, that's one way of putting it, is
Yeah.
Judgment Day. We will be all sealed into the Oort cloud together
Mm.
and not allowed out until we learn to live together in peace.
In harmony. Yeah, makes sense to me.
If we
Makes a
can't
lot of
get along
sense.
with each other, they're not going to let us out.
So to go back to Eisenhower, and I know what you were saying earlier on that you know at least three treaties that he signed with,
There are witnesses for
yeah.
3 treaties.
So
There are also witnesses that the Germans in Antarctica won World War II with the Battle of Operation High Jump. President Truman refused to sign their peace treaty. Eisenhower was forced to because they kept buzzing Washington, D.C. with ships, proving to him they had the technology to do what they wanted and he'd better cooperate. And they gave him favorable terms, sort of. They were allowed to keep the illusion that Germany lost the war because the nation of Germany did surrender. But they had to have a German on every board of directors in corporate America and in government as well. That was Operation Paperclip. Also, they would be part of the German space program, junior partners, and they were required to give them 150,000 Americans every year. I was one of those in 1964.
Trading us like livestock.
They
I mean,
wanted the Americans that were sent to them to like it enough to want to join them and be colonists. After all, a quarter of our population has German ancestry. That's something most people don't know either. They think we're all English and Hispanics and blacks, and we're not. We're a quarter of our population has German ancestry. Another quarter, it's more than the people who have English ancestry in America,
right.
even though we speak English. Now, they wanted us to want to join them. So what did the CIA do? They made sure our DNA was modified because the Germans wanted Earth humans. They didn't want hybrids.
I just want to say fuck them. I mean, like, that's really what I am so compelled to say right now. But
Yeah,
I mean, and I'm gonna say sort of
but
that.
yeah, Eisenhower had no choice in the matter.
So,
And
but let's
I
not
know
pretend he was the do-gooder. He wasn't a victim either. I'm pretty sure Eisenhower would have played his role to get to where he was as well, to be
my
president of America.
understanding was that he was tough. After all, he had been a general in World War II. He
Yeah,
saw some pretty bad things at the end of the war. I haven't got proof of all of them, so I'm not going to mention them. Okay, there were some pretty bad things that he's accused of being involved in. So
well,
this
can you give us
this
give
is
us an idea of what that is?
there were some atrocities accused.
Kid?
The Allies were accused of some serious atrocities at the end of the war, and you notice that there were no Allies involved in the Nuremberg trials. So that will give you a direction to start looking. But Laura's a good person, and this was her great grandfather, and he
Yeah,
was
no, I
he
mean,
was always good to her, and she wants to preserve that memory. And I don't blame her. This is her family.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Definitely.
there are witnesses, and I have a clip compilation that talks about it. So I have clips
Sure.
from video interviews of the witnesses. So
Well,
I can give you the link for that if you like.
yeah, I would like the link, but I'll get that from you off air, or can you give it to us here?
It's on my Odyssey channel, and
Okay.
I did a set of when David Grush gave his testimony before the American Congress.
Okay.
There was a lot of pushback. So I went through, I did 15 hours of video that were clip compilations of testimony that supported his.
Well, we've got your details in the description area with your websites, your social media platforms. So, guys, please follow Penny. If you're not doing so already. as you can tell, fascinating testimony, way beyond your testimony. Your knowledge is amazing when it comes to this, Penny. So thank you for sharing. And I want to just say
Thank you
thank you
for
to
having me.
everybody for watching as well. Penny, is there anything you can maybe just share with the viewers? Anything you're doing at the moment that you want to give a shout out for? Or just a message in closing?
I think people need to understand that we're all just people, and the survivors of the space-related black ops are just people trying to live with memories that no one should have.
Exactly.
And most of us are talking because we want it stopped.
Yes, absolutely. I can't
So,
imagine it's fun. I know with many survivors after shows and stuff, you guys really need to take a breath. You guys really need to,
yeah.
so again, thank you. And again, I think what you've done, I found it really actually beautiful what you said earlier on when you're speaking about survivors. Survivors are not nice people. They're angry people. They're
Mm,
frustrated. They're wounded. They've experienced stuff that no human being should ever see, and especially no child. So, we're dealing with a world of people very much coming out of hell, because I cannot think of another word other than hell, what you guys have been through. So, again, let's be kind, let's be cool. I know we tend to take things personally a lot. I think, for me, what I've learned a lot over the past 5 years is when people behave in a bizarre way, let's just use the word bizarre because that will cover many labels, so to speak. Let's just give a thought to why that might be. There's so many things on the internet of people taking video clips of other people in doing bizarre things and stuff like that. I think a lot of that is just the times we're living in, you know,
mm,
um, a lot of people in pain. Yeah, a lot of people open to having these attachments suddenly um, use them as a body, whatever, and hitchhike on them and do strange things because that's what these entities do. And it doesn't mean the person's a bad person. It just means that they wounded and open and have had a hole for this thing to take over. On Solutions with Shanti, and I want to just say, if you guys haven't subscribed there yet, please do. I'm going on a completely the healing. Understand healing is not some fancy thing we do. Healing is finding your balance again. That's what healing is. So, they've everything they've inverted. And we speak about this so much. They've taken our symbols, they've inverted them. They've taken our spiritual gifts, they've inverted them. They've weaponized children's own spiritual gifts against them. And
uh-huh,
what we're doing there is I'm literally just talking about how to undo that, how to reclaim our symbols that are originally from God, how to reclaim our spiritual gifts that are ours. They are ours. They wouldn't be stealing them from children if they were not belonging to the kids, right?
yeah.
So, yeah, let's just take the next part of this journey and walk gently with each other. Crazy times indeed. But yeah, thank you again, Penny, and thank you everybody for watching and supporting. And we support our survivors by listening to their testimonies, by purchasing their books, reading their stories, because reading their stories is supporting them on their journey. So it's not just supporting them financially, as we know many of the survivors have a really bad time when they come out financially and stuff like that. Isolation, people around them disappear. friendships people think they get crazy, stuff like that. So be aware of what there is out there, guys. And Penny, thank you again. This is a fascinating conversation, and I look forward to our next one. Take good care, everybody. God bless you all. And yeah, stay cool, stay kind.